Welcome, everyone, to the February edition of Conversations with Archbishop Kurtz. Boy, 2021 is just moving along.
It is moving along, and it's good to be in February and getting close to Lent.
Very good, Archbishop. As usual, we have another fine show. Good stuff today. We're going to start by talking about a new encyclical our Holy Father put out last year. We're going to talk about this particular document, Fratelli Tutti, and Archbishop's going to teach us what it teaches us itself. Then we're going to have a time with a special interview the Archbishop will do, only they're going to turn the tables. We have a special guest from Mercy Academy, and she's going to interview Archbishop Kurtz about Operation Rice Bowl. And our third segment will be our teaching opportunity. Archbishop Kurtz and I are going to discuss the four marks of the Church. So let's get started. We got this beautiful encyclical to our Holy Father, his third one, I think?
It is. It's his third one, Brian. Fratelli Tutti, which of course is Italian. It comes from St. Francis of Assisi himself, saying brothers and sisters all. And it's, I think the larger title is Brothers and Sisters All in a Common Home.
Very good.
Yeah.
That sounds very inviting.
Yeah.
What does it teach us?
Well, you know, I think a primary thing it teaches us is actually a new phrase that our Holy Father has used. And he talks about social friendship. Now, you and I are used to talking about social justice, about the need for us to be concerned with basic rights of people that uphold their dignity. So this is not instead of social justice, but our Holy Father is saying more is required of us. And social friendship includes the involvement of what I would call an encounter, an accompaniment, an engagement. So in other words, it's not enough for me to look at a distance and say, oh, I want to make sure the world goes well. I have to be engaged in the life of the world. And so friendship, for my own benefit as well as for those I serve, is a call that we all have. It's a wonderful document.
So it's more than social media. It's a deeper encounter he's calling us to?
It is. That's exactly right. Well, I think when we look at the word friendship, we know that there's something mutual about it. I mean, a friendship that's one way is not really a friendship. So it immediately gets us involved in that notion of a friendship that is mutual. It talks about something that was also part of St. John Paul II and Pope Benedict, of this notion of accompaniment and of encounter, that somehow I meet God and I meet others in a way that changes my heart, that completes me. It's a beautiful, beautiful idea.
It's not dense, but there's a lot of other teachings in here. What's another one?
Yeah, well, of course, one of the main ways that he talks about it is true dialogue. I think we talked about this last month, where he's saying we need to be in dialogue with all people. It's interesting that the encyclical is addressed to all people in the world, not just bishops, not just Catholics, it's to everybody. And he's basically saying that dialogue involves searching for the truth. He's not saying that truth is relative, but he's saying I need to be civil, courteous, and also seeing the dignity of the person with whom I'm in dialogue, even if I disagree with that person.
So being civil when you disagree. There's a new...
and it has this notion of not being civil and cold, but being genuine and human. There's a beautiful quality to what he talks about with regard to dialogue.
Very good.
Yeah.
I know you have a number of favorite themes because you and I chatted about it before. What's another one?
Well, another one comes from the second chapter. He talks about the parable of the Good Samaritan. Yeah. And it's interesting because I usually say, well, who is my neighbor? Like Cain did. He said, who became my neighbor? He sees it as a process, so that the Samaritan became a neighbor to the Judean who was injured and wounded on the road. It was a process, not simply a fact of life. So it's not just who I happen to be living next to by circumstance, but it's the relationship that I have with the other person. Becoming a neighbor means that it's a title I need to live up to. And so it's not only a reality, but it's a responsibility. It's not only a gift, but it's a way of living out that gift. So I think that process of becoming, was an important one. And then, of course, our Holy Father also says this is not just one-on-one, but it involves public policy and world policy throughout the world. So he talks about many very complicated issues, but he basically says the need to consider the person has to be foremost. We can't be driven simply by economic realities. He doesn't ignore them, but he says we need to be concerned about the welfare of the human family.
Before we get to another theme, is it unusual for an encyclical to address the world like this?
I think so. It's I should have looked it up, by the way, but I think most encyclicals in the past were addressed in teaching ways to bishops, who were there in turn invited to make the teaching present. I think he sees this as a responsibility to himself teach by example. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's important. I think to note that the tool of an encyclical has a new approach now.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Brian, he does say something else to the world, and that he says is don't use religion as a weapon for violence. He's not saying that we shouldn't be strong in our faith and our convictions, but don't impose, persuade. This is something.
A lot of wars have been fought over religion.
Oh, and in fact, I think he talks about the people who are intolerant and who are imposing on others, and violence becomes a tool. Now, I think there's a lot of other violence that's not religious, so that's true. But we should be the example of the peaceful ways of going forward. He gets into two specific things, too. He gets into the death penalty, which, of course, Pope John Paul, in our Catechism of the Catholic Church back in the 90s, remember, that was one of the few changes that occurred to the Catechism in which it became stronger in opposition to the death penalty. Right. Benedict continued that. And now Pope Francis has said, we need to move away from the taking of life, even if it's not innocent life, the taking of life that has an effect on us, but it also takes away the opportunity for conversion to people.
Again, because of the dignity of everybody.
Absolutely. And the same is true of war. Paul VI, very famously in the United Nations in the 70s said, or I think it was actually in the 60s, said, war never again, no more war. And I think that resolve to not solve conflicts by more conflicts is something that this document, our Holy Father, is leading the way in.
Very good.
Yeah.
I have read it myself, but I didn't pick out the same themes, so I'm so happy to hear your themes, and we'll look forward to having further conversations about these kinds of topics, because I think they're going to continue to show up in our teachings.
Absolutely. Good. Thanks, Brian. Thanks. I encourage people to read the document, too.
Great, great. Thanks, folks, for tuning in to this segment. And when we come back just after a moment, Archbishop's going to interview a special guest from Mercy Academy, and she's going to interview him. We'll be right back.